the trauma of finding money to pay for basic necessities.
In the image of the United National Congress, the Member of Parliament for Oropouche West, Dave Tancoo.
Political leader of the United National Congress, the Honorable Kamala Prasad Bisesa, Senior Counsel, fellow presenters tonight on this stage of patriots, UNC stalwarts, fellow citizens, good night. In the last 6 years, Imbert, Rowley, Young, and Faris have spent $304 billion. That is enough to have given every man, woman, and child in this country $250,000. Think about what you could have done with that to improve your lives. And now, think about where you are actually today. It seems every time the PNM is in office, the population asks the same question: where the money gone? And when you ask them to account for spending your money, they behave as though it belongs to the bank accounts of Colin Burt, Keith Rowley, Stuart Young, or Faris Al-Rawi. Ask yourself why. Today, too many of our families are living in poverty, unsure of where their next meal is coming from. Too many of our businesses have closed for good. Many others are in debt, and others have drastically downsized. Too many of our children, once benefiting from school feeding programs, have now been abandoned by this government to wake up hungry, stay hungry, and go back to bed hungry. Too many of our elderly are now having to use their already inadequate pensions to buy food for family members who have now become their dependents. Too many sick people are unable to get medical attention, medical treatment at our health facilities. Too many households are now officially poor as the middle class has collapsed. Too many people, ladies and gentlemen, are without jobs. I ask you tonight, how can a government spend over $4 billion every month for the last 6 years and still leave all of these problems unsolved? Where has this money gone? What has this money been spent on? Tell us who have benefited. You see, every day there's a new corruption scandal under this government. $600 million wasted by the NGC Board of Directors, handpicked by the Prime Minister and appointed by the Cabinet. More than $500 million is in somebody's pocket, and the Prime Minister and his gang wants us to just forget it and move on. No investigation ordered. No one held accountable. So you see, when Imbert and his gang tell you that this country has no money, what they really mean is that they have no money for you. Because the PNM friends, family, and financiers, young and old, are laughing all the way to the bank. For them, life goes on as usual. At the Glasgow fiasco, Keith Rowley boasted openly about his government's plans for the environment. Not achievements, because they have continued to suffer from analysis paralysis and failed plans. He boasted about the government's performance. And then today, we read in the newspapers that there is $7.6 billion in the Green Fund, but since April, there has been no board, no advisory council appointed by the government to approve sustainable, environmentally positive projects. This PNM cabinet couldn't find time to appoint 7 persons out of 1.4 million to serve on this board to approve funds for environmental projects. But Rowley, Young, and Camille could jump on a plane, travel in luxury, and stay in luxurious accommodations paid for by you, the taxpayers, so that the Prime Minister could speak for 10 minutes to an empty room. You see, everything for them is PR and photo op. They would have been better off if they had Zoomed call in. But it's a lime for them. And while they are liming, citizens are suffering. If you went to the market yesterday, you know that the price of fresh agricultural products have risen a lot. You were paying about $6.70 for a pound of tomatoes in 2015. This morning in the market, you would have had to pay $13.25 for the same pound of tomatoes, an increase of 100%. Sweet peppers went from $6.25 per pound in 2015 to $13.25 per pound again today, a 100% increase. Pumpkin went from $2.20 to $6.25, an increase of over 280%. Karali, cabbage, potatoes, sweet peppers, seasonings, pak choy, same body, prices have all gone up. And these are agricultural products grown right here in Trinidad and Tobago and consumed in every home in this country. These are not products imported from all over the world that are affected by the increased shipping costs, foreign exchange starvation, and shortages based on increased world demand. And yes, those too have increased. You know that the price of beans and peas and milk and sugar and garlic and onion and other basic imported food items have also been increasing consistently. But I want to remind you viewers tonight that long before COVID, food importers have been complaining about the shortage of foreign exchange, which created credit difficulties for them, increased their transaction costs, and therefore increased the cost of food imports. Long before COVID, local farmers have been complaining about neglect, bad infrastructure, no access roads, poor market conditions, and the regular loss of their produce either through theft or through flooding. You citizens, you know firsthand that the standard of living of average persons in this country has fallen, that your disposable income and your purchasing power has collapsed, that citizens are living on their savings where they had, or where they had no savings, they are now reduced to begging for a hamper. It is not that the government does not know, ladies and gentlemen. It is that they simply do not care. In January 2021, the Caribbean COVID-19 Food Security and Livelihoods Impact Survey revealed that 8 out of 10 persons in the lowest income groups were jobless. Overall, 2 in every 10 persons admitting to skipping meals or eating less. But in households with incomes listed as below or well below average, 4 out of 10 persons were going without food, some for the entire day, in Trinidad and Tobago in 2021. One 52-year-old man reported loss of job, difficulty paying rent, light, buying food, clothing, etc. I am drained to dying. That is the state we are in Trinidad. The report found that many had resorted to selling assets to meet their basic food needs, sacrificing educational and future opportunities. This survey confirms something that we in the UNC have been telling this government for years. Too many of our citizens are in desperate and worsening conditions. But it also revealed another startling fact. 9 out of 10 citizens were surviving at below or well below average income levels, but had gotten no assistance ever from the government during this COVID. These are the persons most desperately in need, and they got nothing from this government. Recent announcements of impending food shortages globally, and with animal feed prices already having increased twice in the last 7 months by national flour mills, and with signals that flour prices will increase soon, things are likely to get even worse. You know, common sense would then have dictated that this food crisis, this poverty crisis, must then be the basis for economic and financial planning. In a country with significant available arable land, mass unemployment, high surplus liquidity in the financial sector, access to technical support from large food producers and markets like India, China, and the United States, that this food crisis would have been seen as an opportunity to galvanize the agricultural sector, fix the infrastructure, to invest in targeted food production, to generate revenue foreign exchange both via import substitution and exports, and to create sustainable employment. That is how a forward-thinking government would have reacted to this food crisis. Instead, the Minister of Finance's response has been a tweet that by 2022, food prices would magically go up to their pre-COVID pandemic levels. That is all. The rest of the world is concerned about global food shortages. Citizens are literally unable to afford food, but Colm Imbert's solution is to do nothing. And that is what he has done. Nothing. Nothing to generate new investment, nothing to generate foreign exchange, nothing to create employment, nothing to create a new revenue base, nothing to diversify the economy, nothing to create an environment for business, nothing to encourage small, micro, and medium-sized businesses. But doing this nothing has been at a price. It has cost you taxpayers $304 billion and counting, with nothing to show for it. Where has this money gone? Over the last 6 years, Imbert's fiscal policy has resulted in a substantial contraction of the economy by over $20 billion. This mismanagement has been funded in no small part by heavy domestic and foreign borrowing, without any investment in revenue generation to repay this debt. That is madness. Recent pronouncement by the governor of the central bank that little can be done about rising food prices is further cause for concern. This parroting of Imbert's misguided commentary cannot be the role of someone who holds such an important independent office. Basic economic theory suggests that the need for monetary and fiscal policy must be aligned for economic development. In this case, it seems to be perfectly aligned, but to the detriment of the population and the country of Trinidad and Tobago. Why doesn't the government use his monetary tools to help the small man and the middle-class business sector and stop the inflationary policies now at play? He spoke of a delicate balancing act, but there's nothing balanced about those least being able to bear the burden being forced to do so. Why has the governor's policies not focused on substantially reducing inflation or redirected to those who can afford it? Why are his hands tied? Who has tied his hands? Is it due to the Minister of Finance deliberately keeping liquidity high so that government and big business can get easy access to funding and capital, but not SMEs? How long should this be left unchecked? And how does this inaction translate into putting food on the table for the small man who desperately needs it? There's a desperate need for an open and transparent redistribution of foreign exchange amongst the banks, businesses, and the public to now allow for all businesses, big and small, to survive. This is critical now. It will help lower prices and help them keep them steady. It will lower the effective cost, especially amongst the most vulnerable. There's no need to reinvent the wheel, ladies and gentlemen. Right here in the Caribbean, we have seen Guyana's government's hands-on approach in addressing rising shipping costs and the effect on imported food. In August, that government ordered a reduction of freight charges to pre-pandemic levels. This ultimately means a reduction in customs duties, excise charges, and VAT on imports, and promised to be a significant incentive to all classes and sizes of business and to the average consumer. Ladies and gentlemen, it cannot be acceptable that the Minister of Finance and the Governor of the Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago will hold their hands behind their back and let it be. Whatever happens, happens. That's not acceptable. I remind you that it was a Kamla Persad-Bissessar administration that removed VAT from 7,000 food items. And it was this Rowley government that put back VAT on these very same items. Given everything that I've said before, the need for fiscal policy to subsidize and manage prices of certain food items that affect the most vulnerable people in society is a vital policy not just the protecting of big business. You see, ladies and gentlemen, we need to innovate, but we need to do so mindful of the difficulties that our citizens are in. I joined the call for the government to remove VAT on the food items that were VAT-free in 2015. Allow citizens to breathe. Hold your hands on the property tax. Hold your hands on the rate increases for WASA and T&Tech. Hold your hands on the increase in the price of flour and oil. Citizens, ladies and gentlemen, should not have to pay for this government's corruption. Over the last 6 years, the UNC under the Honorable Kamla Persad-Bissessar have freely shared our ideas to stimulate employment and growth of the economy. Here are 12 of those ideas, and there are many, many more. It has only been because of pure bad mind by this government that the Minister of Finance and his government have been maliciously refusing to pursue any of these initiatives, choosing to do nothing instead. The result has been a horrific collapse of our economy and the impoverishment of huge sections of fellow citizens. If you, like me, believe that better can and must be done, join us. Join the people's revolution. Protect your country before it's too late. I thank you, ladies and gentlemen.